back to Purposeful. I'm your host, Ashley Bernardi, founder and CEO of Nardi Media, an award-winning strategic communications firm helping mission-driven leaders transform meaningful work into messages that move people. Purposeful here is an extension of that work, where we have thoughtful conversations with people who are using their voice, their platform, and their leadership to shape a better future. And as a former network TV producer, I have spent my career studying what makes ideas resonate. That's what we're talking about today, my friends. We're exploring one that I believe couldn't be more timely. Our guest today is the incredible Sara Connell. She's a five-time best-selling author, speaker, founder of Thought Leader Academy, and a coach who has helped more than 1,000 authors, entrepreneurs, executives, and change makers turn their powerful ideas into best-selling books, TED Talks, and thriving businesses. Her work has been featured in Oprah, the New York Times, Forbes, and Good Morning America. We're here to talk to Sara today all about her new book, The Download. Train your brain, unlock your genius, create miracles. And her book is asking a very important question. Where do our best ideas actually come from? At a time when artificial intelligence, what we know as AI, can generate almost anything in seconds, Sara argues that our greatest advantage isn't thinking harder, it's learning how to access the uniquely human insights no technology can replicate. Drawing from neuroscience, psychology, and one of the most remarkable personal stories I've ever heard, she introduces what she calls the download walk, a practical method for creating the conditions where breakthrough ideas can emerge. Sara, welcome to Purposeful. I am so happy to have you here today.
I am thrilled to be here.
Okay, we have a lot to get into, Sara. I want to talk about the book, but I also want to share your story with our audience because you have a very deeply personal story. And I want to talk about your journey of infertility, of loss, and just simply walking because you didn't know what to do. Can you just take us back to that season of your life?
For sure. So my husband and I, we've been married now 25 years. So we were, newlyweds. We lived abroad for a little while, and it was, seemed like the thing that we were doing and our friends were doing. Let's kind of pull the goalie, if you will, and let's start a family. And I'd always wanted children. My husband always wanted children. So this was definitely an intentional, deep desire that we had. And like many people, a lot, right? We did not get pregnant, and we tried every holistic thing under the sun. We did acupuncture, and I would have done an exorcism if one had been available, and ultimately moved on to in vitro fertilization and medically assisted fertility practices. So it was a couple years even getting to the point of becoming pregnant. And then in my first pregnancy, we were so excited. We were having twin boys, and I was quite far along going into the third trimester, and I went into premature labor, and we lost our twins. They were stillborn. And anyone who's been through anything like this, right? It's hard. It's really, really tough. And we went on to do more rounds of IVF, and I had a miscarriage, and then more frustration. And we'd spent all our money. If anyone's taken that journey, it's not inexpensive. So we're depleted emotionally and psychologically and physically. And I couldn't let it go. I just couldn't let this desire to start a family, even through everything we'd been through, it wouldn't leave. And so I've talked about, like, every time the phone lit up, the screen lit up, I just would brace myself because it was always a friend saying they were pregnant. That's the era we were in. And I was happy for them, excited for them, and devastated every single time, every time. And the only thing that, I don't know if it even helped, but kind of helped a little bit, is that I would just start walking. I would just have to get out of my house and move. I don't know if I was trying to outrun the grief, the pain, whatever it was, but I just would walk every day for as long, after I'd done whatever work I needed to do, as long as I could. And it was just these searching it was a place for me to process the feelings that I didn't know where else to put, because it's not, you don't want to be the person at the baby shower, like crying in the fetal position on the floor. You got to show up for people. And then I would just live with all of this secret pain, and the walks were sort of what I did to sort of try to transmute that in some way. And I'll pause there for a moment, but just in terms of like where we were, this wasn't short, this was many years, and it was kind of compounded trauma at that point.
Yeah. And I just want to say, I'm going to pause for a second, because that is a lot. Losing twins, and I'm sure there are listeners out here who have had this type of loss and who can relate to also having miscarriages like you had afterwards. What a season of life of grief that you were in. What made you like what did you feel called to walk when you were like what was because I feel this like when I went through my own health crisis when
Right.
I had Lyme disease,
Mm,
I literally started walking and th like that was one of the only things that helped
right.
move me through
Right.
the grief of losing my health. So
Right.
what?
Because
Yeah.
it's almost, it's like we don't know what to do and we can't
Yeah.
fix the thing. I'm sure you couldn't, Lyme is not like an easy take an antibiotic. It's a
No.
really hard thing that has debilitating, effects
Yeah.
on your life, right? And this psychologically and emotionally and financially was, similar in that way. And so I think the walking, because I've heard this from people who've lost a parent, other things, it's
Yeah.
there's something about there's a soothing nature. I mean, we'll get into the science later
Yeah. Yeah.
today, but it's like there's something about I'm doing something and I'm moving something, and I'm not like the idea of for me, I don't know if this is true for you, Ashley. It was like unbearable to sit with it
Yes.
for too long. There's only so
Yeah.
much I could just be with it. And then I was still with it, but I was moving energy. I mean,
That's right.
movement is a state changer, and exercise produces positive hormones and endorphins anyway. And so there's
Yeah.
a lot of things likely going on for those of us that just, like you said, we just did it naturally, like a wounded animal, kind of like I just need to
Yeah.
move. And what would happen is I'd start to see these branches in my path, like on the side of the roads. I live in Chicago, so often these were city walks, but there are trees on the sidewalks, and there's branches. And, I'd see these branches, and every time one fell like a Y, it would be like a Y shape. For whatever reason, I started to just notice them. Okay. I just noticed these branches. And let's be clear, branches look like that, right? They often have
Yeah.
shapes that look like the Y. But for whatever reason, I'd see these Y branches, little ones, big ones. And I just, something happened. It was like, yes, I'd see the Y as a yes. And I just decided, I
Mm.
don't know if it was Sigmund Freud's wish fulfillment, like where we sort of project what we want to see, onto our natural environment, or it what felt like a sign, right? I'm a sign person.
Yeah.
I like
Same.
signs. I believe in them. And for whatever reason, I kind of created this code that those branches were some kind of a sign of yes. And I would start bringing them home. And, and there's this little forest just sort of gathering in my, entryway. And my husband's like, at this point, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
just let her be kind of crazy right
Yeah.
now. And I just had this little forest of whys. And for whatever reason, I would tell myself it was a yes to what I didn't know, but a yes to keep going,
Mm.
a yes to there's some support here. We're going to find a way. And I had surrendered the how at this point. We could foster, we could be adoptive parents, we had let go of what it had to look like. And I just kept saying, kind of show me. And these Y branches weren't giving me an exact answer, but it felt like some kind of encouragement.
Yeah. And talk to us about like as time went on, the walking and walking and walking, and then your
Right.
mom got involved in
Right.
this walking. So take us to that
Right.
moment.
So my mother lives in Alexandria, Virginia, so not far from where you're based, and that's where I
Mhm.
grew up. And I'm in Chicago, so we're 700 miles away at this point. And my mother had, she had at that point she was about 58, 9, 59, and she wanted to figure out what she was going to do in this next chapter of her life. She did not want to keep working in the kind of government job she'd been doing. She didn't want. She's like, I don't play golf. I don't want to move to Florida. Like there was no model she felt for like a woman who's approaching 60 who felt like she was just getting started, and she had this real angst about it. There was this angst about I'm not done.
Yeah.
I feel viral and healthy, and I don't, but she couldn't figure out like what she wanted to do. And so she starts walking every day. I'm walking, I want to have a child, and she's walking like I want to know what I'm going to do with my life. And and we would sometimes be on the phone together while we walked, and sort of I invited her to a coaching workshop where we built vision boards. And my mother is not, they're not a sign person, traditional hardcore Catholic, grown up. And I don't know about all this, but
Yeah.
she made this vision board, and she put on this ostrich in the middle that looked so excited. She's like, that's how excited I want to feel about whatever I'm going to do next. And then she found this little clipping that said, women after menopause have a choice. And she said, I meant
Mm.
retirement. She's like, I couldn't find the word retirement in a magazine, but I'll put this. And then she put a picture of a woman with a big pregnant belly holding her belly. And she said, I hope it's okay. I put this for you. And is it okay to put someone else? And so I start crying, like,
Mm.
oh, thanks, mom. Yeah, it's okay. And
Mm.
so she puts it, she does the vision board. She gets home and puts it up in her room and she calls me and says, I think this is all a bunch of BS. Like, she's like, I don't know why I even put it up. I think kind of no offense, but I think this is
Yeah.
stupid. And I said, look, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to believe in it. Just put it up on your wall and just see it as you walk around and don't. So she forgets about it, doesn't think a thing. We keep doing these walks. And then, this is months later. My mother's on a walk with some friends. She comes back up the hill, and one of the women said, oh, I saw this news story about a postmenopausal woman who got pregnant. And they all start making jokes like, should we be worried? Do we have to use birth control? Because they've been through menopause for 10 years.
Yeah.
And she gets home and she's getting ready to get in the shower. And she just, for whatever reason, looked at the vision board that day. And she hadn't looked at it in months. She'd forgotten. She even left it up. And she said it was like this current ran through her. And it was like the images start, if it was a movie, they would have started to like merge or do something. And she said, oh my God. And she has this vision of offering to be a surrogate for my husband and I. So this is nothing we had ever considered. Who's going to ask their 60-year-old mother to, do this, right?
Yeah.
Nothing we'd considered. And she was scared to say it because what if she didn't want me to feel like she didn't believe in my body well, believe me, I wasn't believing in my body at all. There was so she shares this idea and I felt the same current go through me. I drop on my knees. I was like, this is how we're having our kid. This is how it made no sense. We thought they were going to call the psychiatric ward when we went to the fertility doctor and say, guys, I'm sorry, you've been through hell, but no. And it turns out because she was super healthy, has low blood pressure, has in great cardiovascular shape, and pregnancy was very easy for her, my sisters and I, easy, natural childbirth. This is how my son was born a year later.
I kept putting my hand on my heart because again, I'm sure our listeners like pause for a moment. The current that ran through you and your mom, was that a knowing, like that download, that just describe that to me? Because you were you said it, you said, this is it. This is how we're going to have
this
our
is it.
baby.
So I didn't at the time really use the word download so much. Like it's become like lots of people, my book's called The Download, right?
Yeah,
it's about where, these moments of inspiration, these strikes of insight, these things.
Yeah.
And we recognize the difference between, I think of a download as a solution, a sign, a breakthrough, an idea, a miracle in this case, right?
Oh, yeah.
That arrives beyond ordinary thought. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that our left brain, if I had sat in a room and come up with all the ways I could have had a child, this is never something ever, 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 ever that would have ever been an option we would have put on a list. It just wasn't something I thought I had no idea it was possible. And it certainly would have been a weird thing to ask your mother to my mom made jokes like, he's just in your old room, the uterus is I mean, we had to get a little, like wacky. So the point is, I could never, with my logical, rational brain, have come up, nor could she, nor could my husband, nor could our doctors ever, ever, ever have come up with this idea. So downloads to me have this kind of resonance. They have, so you said we felt this just, oh my God, this is how, I mean, and I just can ask you, Ashley, like, have you ever had, like you're in the shower or you're walking, or have you had something that just arrived and you just think, oh my God?
So it's so interesting. It's always been when I've been moving, and I would describe it as a moment of pure clarity.
Right.
And I'm a dancer, and that's usually when it happens. But I also love to run. But I take dance multiple times a week, and I feel the most clear right after I even during or right after. So yes, and I feel like there's so many audience members who can relate.
Right. I would wager, and I've now talked to, what have we so far in writing the book, in the 18 months of writing it, I probably spoke with, maybe different polls and audiences and things, maybe let's say, 2,000 people. So it's a tiny sample so far, but I haven't met anyone yet who's never had one download. Like at some point there was an idea that came, there was a aha moment. Someone sort of just showed up with the solution. We have these, and we have them often while moving, which we'll talk about the science behind it. We have them when our brain is basically in a certain state. There is a certain brain state that makes us available to these kind of downloads. And through the repetitive walks, the dancing that you do, you know that that is something you can rely on. Like my hunch would be, if you know you need to get clear, for me, it's like get out in nature on a walk. Like
No.
if I need a
Yep.
clarity, I know that's the fastest amplified way for you. Dance, someone else, one of the women in the book, she's a swimmer, open water swimmer, and that's where
Mm-hmm.
she's an artist and she swims and then the painting shows up.
It
And
should.
so we have access to this all the time, but we're not in state all the time, right?
Right.
And then you knew it though. When you get that clarity after dance, it's just we can recognize that
Mhm.
singular it and I have a whole technique of how can we tell something's a download and not just a regular thought? Like there's a
Mhm.
brain science way of really helping ourselves understand we're each unique. You know, you and I have our ways. Everyone listening will have their way, but we've all had them. And the question is, what would it be like to have more of them and consciously, intentionally have them when we need them?
Oh, like, okay, first of all, yes, like my body is like full yes to this because I feel this so deeply, especially as we are entering in a world of excessive artificial intelligence where to me, it feels like our brains kind of taking a backseat to ideas. And this is something that I don't want us to lose these downloads.
Right?
So before we get into the science, well, maybe we'll get into the science, but where do you see AI fitting into this?
Hmm.
Because I think that there is a risk that we could lose this, I don't know what you would call it, a divine gift, or maybe it's even also a lot of science involved in it where we're
Yeah.
just kind of training our brain to stop if we continue the use of AI. I know this is a loaded question, but I
It's
think
a
you get where I'm
really
going.
good question and one that I will go ahead and say obsessed with, right? This is what I get
Yeah.
to talk with. I was on an AI focused podcast yesterday and it was great because we got into it. So here's like, I love AI for so many things, right? So we're not talking about an either or here, but what is really important to think about is what's at risk in, when we choose to use AI and for what purposes.
Hmm.
And so when we talk about wanting these down, I think most of us, I find it a true thrill in the most authentic use of that word when I get a download. Like it is
Yeah.
thrilling to me that there's something I
Totally.
couldn't have figured out on my own and then it just shows up. And
Yeah.
and I think that is one of the coolest things. It feels miraculous. It feels exciting. I feel grateful. Like it feels like we're not alone in just our own human selves figuring it out, right?
Yeah.
So what we want to, right, we don't want to lose that. And the truth is that if we don't use our brains and them in a state and train them for creativity and innovation and these downloads, then we are in a use it or lose it type of scenario. Because like we can't send AI to the gym and then be fit and strong, we can't have it go lift the weights. We have to lift the weights. It's very
Right.
much like that with our brains. And we need to, and we're not in a way that's effortful and start. This is all habit stackable. Like anything with downloads we can do while we do other stuff that we already do. But what we can't do is default every single time we're faced with an unknown challenge, a creative task, a problem to solve.
Hmm.
If we run right away to Claude and chat, and it's very tempting because they're always there and they're on 24/7 and they know a lot, right?
Hmm.
It's very helpful, immediate. But I really, really work on not going there first. When the task, you and I talked about this, Ashley, I asked myself,
Yeah.
what is the purpose of this task that I'm going to do? What is the purpose? If the purpose is, I need to check something off a list or something I've done a million times, yes, I go right to AI. Wonderful. But if the purpose is I've got to solve a problem, create something like a
Hmm.
piece of writing, a document for business, a strategic idea,
Hmm.
whatever it might be, I really, and it's a struggle on a daily basis because that other stuff, it's right there. The AI is
Right
right there.
there.
But I really commit myself to first going to my own beautiful imaginal brain, right? Getting out of that left brain thinking into right brain where those
Hmm.
downloads live, connected to source if that's someone's worldview,
Hmm.
where those
Hmm.
downloads can be accessed. And just for a couple minutes, go there first because Bob Dylan said something along the lines of, we're a society that runs for convenience and repents later.
Mm. I love that quote, by the way, and Bob Dylan.
I know. I mean, Bob and the quote are
Yeah.
brilliant. And people
Yeah.
are like, I think that's misattributed. I was like, whoever said it, it was
It,
really wise
yeah.
because that is what, look, we're tired. We are overwhelmed cognitively. We're asked to make
Yeah.
tens of thousands of decisions every day. Our
Yeah.
attention span, the research shows, has shrunk to 47 seconds at a time. That's what we've done by just being on these constantly. And so we're tired, and we're not really lazy. People say, oh, people are so lazy. They're not, they're tired.
They're
They're
tired.
exhausted, they're overwhelmed. I should say like we all feel that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you have something that's just going to like write a strategy for you or write the article for you or create the new paradigm. And great after you create it, go there and then say, now find out who's doing this and what have I missed? And wonderful. Use AI for all of that thought partnering after. But the origin and the MIT study that came out in 2025
Mhm.
illuminates this. Some of you listening might have seen it, where three groups were given. One group had to write like college style essays on their own. The other group could look up facts on Google search, and then one group could use a large language model, ChatGPT, Claude, to help or write the essay. And so they put brain sensors on everybody and they watched what happened. And it's not a surprise that the group that had to write their essays and the group that looked up facts, because they still had to put logic, they still had to
Mhm.
create the piece, their brain centers lit up, their different, memory and thinking and prefrontal cortex and everything was like building. They
Yeah.
were expanding their neural pathways, they were building brain matter. And the group that had the option to use AI all did. And to the point that they sort of pretended to use the prompt at first themselves, and then they just gave the AI the model and had them write the whole thing. And their brains were dead zones.
Wow.
Just very low. I guess not to say dead, but
But
low, low, low neural activity. Like
yeah, not lighting up
the
like the
the
person.
equivalent of watching a show. Like
Yeah.
you're not developing your brain really unless it's a show where you're learning something. If you're watching a sitcom or a Will Ferrell movie, which I love, but we're not developing brain matter on those. And the really haunting part, in addition to the brain atrophy that we're talking about here, is that the assessors who read the essays blind labeled the AI generated essays soulless.
Oh. Well, and that because they are.
I know. And they don't have a soul and they don't have a
Yeah.
heartbeat. And we have to remember too that it's not just ourselves. We're talking about the large language models can only pull from what's created. And so if we're not creating new original thought, that system is going to start just circling the drain at a very fast point. We're at like we've got an escape velocity moment and there needs to be enough people willing to just actually still do creative work to
Yeah.
get, to launch out of here, because otherwise we're just going to only draw from the same. We're in a sameness epidemic already. We can tell that AI writing is so ick.
It's totally. You can
Crazy.
just tell the journalist in me knows anytime something's been written by AI. You're right. It feels soulless. And I wonder for you as someone who coaches thought leaders every day, what you're seeing happen when people rely too heavily on AI because before they've just done their own thinking. Have you seen this in
Yeah.
your own work?
I haven't actually. It was fascinating. A woman who wasn't our client. So, our community is probably a little annoying. I'm pretty stringent about, first of all, just for everyone's reference, in traditional book publishing, you cannot have your AI write your book. They will screen.
Correct.
Mine got screened this week. It came back as 100% human. I was so
Amazing.
excited. Hachette called and said, it's gone through our thing and it's 100% human. And I was well, I knew that I wrote it, but also I
Yeah.
was relieved and happy that but
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a new thing on all our content, right? Substack 100%.
Totally.
I want to get a seal that we like
Yeah.
stamp on things.
100%
100%
human written.
human
Yeah.
written, right? This is
I
a
love
real
that.
human that made this or wrote it. But so what we've done, because we're not going to be naive and think that our clients don't want to use AI. Again, we're encouraging the use of AI, but in ways that are going to promote human flourishing and the future that we want to see. That
Mm-hmm.
is the context. And so we've created AI prompts and a process for our creators, people that are writing talks and books and articles, and said, here's the way you can still do this so much faster and so much more efficiently, but here's what we recommend first to prompt your own brain. Not just the AI prompt. I'm about the HI, the human intelligence
I
prompt
love it.
first. Right. We're
HI.
doing
Yep.
HI. And so then we have the prompts though to get Claude and chat to write without the soul. So we've trained them to write well once someone wants to, support their book, depending on what style of publishing they're going to choose.
Yeah.
I didn't do any of that obviously in my book, but if they want to and do a hybrid press or self-publishing, we've done it like ethical AI in terms of from a writer's standpoint. And what I'm finding though, a woman I spoke with yesterday called and said, She said, I really wish I hadn't let AI touch my book. And I said, tell me more.
Oh,
I was
okay.
really interested because
That
she's
is
a person
interesting.
who's writing about cloning yourself. So her whole thing is like, let the machines do it, right?
Yeah.
And she said, because what happened is by the time I went back and forth and it read all my stuff and we went, she said, it didn't sound like me at all anymore. She's like, she lost her soul in it. And so now she's at this place where she's committed to the book coming out soon. She has a fall launch like I do. And she's like, I don't know if I should go rewrite it. And I said, you don't want to ask me my thoughts. I was like, you don't really want my opinion on, because I would say I would do some rewriting, because what do you want to just, it's, you don't have a connection to it in the
It's
same
no
way.
longer her voice. It's a machine's.
Yeah. So I think it's an and, not an or. I don't
Right.
think it's like I'm not gonna, live in a cabin in the woods with no electricity and just I'm not, right. I get it, but it's using it in a way that we've gotten the downloads first, so that we're bringing something original and quality, and then being very careful if we are using it as an editor or a writing coach or a thought partner, that we are telling it what it can and cannot do and how to keep a
Yeah,
heartbeat in that thing still, because she
that's
lost the
right.
heartbeat.
That's right. And I feel like that a lot of ways ties back to your book, The Download. It really is about the human, the soul, the heartbeat, and that connection, whether you want to call it the divine, God,
Mhm.
or just, neuroscience. There's so much in it. So I want to talk about
Yeah.
the book. So let's first like take a step back. The motivation behind writing The Download,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
this moment in time that's so important to share it with the world.
Right. So just like it's a sort of meta experience that I was leading. I do an international retreat every year for groups of our thought leaders, and we were in Tuscany. I mean, how nice, right? Like
Beautiful.
what a nice job.
Yeah.
And we were there, and it was the last day, and everyone's like, I don't want to go back, and I don't want to leave, and we all, we're just in this blissful state. And I taught them a brain science technique that I've been working on. It combines many different things, but it's essentially a goal manifestation, goal setting, and fruition, technique. And essentially, you write, many of us have done this in the present tense, like the thing
Yep.
that you want to have happen, and then you
Yep.
run your hand over it and you read it out loud. And there's all these ways to like stimulate your brain and your subconscious. So I taught them the process. And the one I wrote was, I've downloaded my next big book idea, because I wanted to think of the next book I was going to write. And for it, you do it for 90 days. And, I for 80 days. Very good. I was modeling good behavior. I promised the group I'd
Hmm.
do it. I'm running my fingers. I'm
You
saying the
became your own
thing, and,
student.
and I'm
Yep.
doing my thing. And it's not coming. And I thought it's going to come when I take this trip with my husband and son, where I'm going to be not in routine. I figured that's where I'll probably get clarity. And I'm on a walk, and I'm just saying my thing. I've downloaded my next book idea, and I keep hearing, it was kind of like a mind's ear, download book. And I said, yes. It's almost like I was dialoguing and like a crazy person on the trail. And I was like, yes, I would like to download the book idea. It's been 80 something days. I would really love it and be so grateful. Thanks. And again, because I didn't want to think of my book from just my left brain, like, oh, what could I write a book about? I wanted
Yeah.
it to come in.
Yeah.
So it kept saying download book, download book. And I thought, yeah, I know. I want to download a book. So it was the same, like a mini current of the thing that happened with my mom. And I suddenly
Mm.
thought, no, that can't be a book about this process, like about downloading. And I texted a good friend and I said, this is ridiculous. It's so meta, right? I can't be saying I'm downloading my book and it's a book about downloads. And she just wrote back, I'd read it.
Yep.
And then that was that.
That
You
was
just
it.
know. You just know.
That's
And
the
so,
knowing.
right,
Yeah.
it's the knowing. And I didn't go thinking I would write, but in a way, then the timing was so beautiful because of what was happening in AI, because this is about the future of thought leadership.
Yeah.
And I've been teaching thought leadership for 20 years. And now it's like, where are we headed? And what do we want to preserve to make sure that
Mm.
creativity and innovation continue to be robust and stimulated,
Mm.
that human genius can be accessed, not through a
Mm.
machine only, but through this
Mhm.
machine that's still
Mhm.
faster than the fastest supercomputer by like a million. It takes a million times more power right now to run the fastest supercomputer than to run our brains, is what the statistic is. So it's pretty cool.
Wow. That's a pretty telling statistic. So for our listeners, they're like, okay, we get it, the download. And I'd love for you to share some of the techniques that you teach in the
Yeah,
book, and then also the science behind it, because there's
right.
neuroscience and psychology
Yeah.
behind this. It's not just woo, it's both. It's swoo,
We
right?
do SWOO. That's our
Yeah.
that's our word in our group, what we've been doing. I took a group through this year, do the book, and like actually learn and do all all the brain activations. And so we just call it SWOO, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
science and woo. And it's actually more science than, I mean, there are people, my tax strategy firm it downloads now. And these are financial guys. Okay. These are not like women who are like woo on a retreat with me. This is like, these are professional financial, advisors to big businesses. And they're like, oh, we're going to go download, we're like, they love it because you can be a complete materialist and this all still works, right? I
Yeah.
think of it as something greater. I think of it as source. That's it doesn't matter what we call. We're downloading not from the cloud and a computer. We're downloading from something else, our
Yeah.
brain. And so I'm going to start with just like the download walk, right? Because actually, this is one of my
Love it.
favorites.
Yes.
And it's just so great because we can all do a version. And if your body doesn't permit, if you're listening and walking isn't on the table right now, like there's a version of this where you don't physically walk, but you'll still get the benefits of this technique. So the reason you and I have both talked, you've been dancing and you've gotten downloads, walk and get downloads. The reason so many downloads come when we walk is because inherent to movement or visualizing movement. Again, if your body doesn't let you walk, you can visualize the movement. Either
Mm.
way, what we're doing is we're activating different brain states. So without
Mhm.
going into bog us down with a lot of neuroscience, our brain, the human brain has been identified can cycle in about 5 different brain states. And delta is when we're in REM sleep, deep, deep, deep sleep. Then there's, theta, which is like sleep, kind of maybe deep meditation, alpha, relaxed, like when you finally just relax, right? Like
Mhm.
parasympathetic nervous system. And then
Mhm.
most of the time, we're always, if we're awake, we're in beta. We're
Mhm.
just thinking, getting stuff done. It's a
Yep.
faster cycle. And then above that is gamma, which we'll get into in a minute. So the point is that most of the time we try to get downloads when we're in beta, and that's not when they come. And so movement is already, because of the neurochemicals and all the things, starts often getting us into more of like alpha theta, more relaxed, more endorphins happening, other things are going on. And then if you add what I'll share with you, you can get some gamma brain waves going in there. And that's where the downloads happen. Like when you bring in alpha
Mm.
theta, scientists call that the genius zone.
Mhm.
And then when you give gamma in there, I call that's the God zone. That's the miracle zone.
The
Okay. So when
God
we're the
zone.
God zone, then that's where we're getting those miracle downloads, right? And
Yeah.
so the study out of Stanford that I think is most important to name here is a study where the researchers took people and they had them sit around like a work table and gave them tasks that required innovation and creativity. They had whatever metrics they had to measure these at Stanford. And they had them do all the normal things. They thought about it, they journaled, they brainstormed, they just did the stuff humans do to solve problems and be creative. And then they compared the outputs to the same people, so exact same people, and they had them go on a walk. And they just had them go on short walks where they, kind of thought about the problem they were trying to solve or the solution, the innovation. And they came back and the creative and innovative outputs were 60% higher
Whoa.
when people walk. 60%.
Wow.
So
60%, everyone.
right?
60%.
For just going on a couple of minute walk, right? It's
Wow.
so that's one thing. And then I got really curious as the why. Okay, like that's cool that it was 60% more effective,
But
but
why?
then the researcher in
Yeah.
me is like, but why?
But why?
And so
Yeah.
the why was, well, there's research, a different set of research from behavioral psychologists that were studying. There's a term that came out of their work called soft fascination. Okay. And so what happens is that we enter a state, whether we're walking, dancing, you can get it looking at a candle or a fireplace, looking at stars, gardening, any repetitive task where there's some movement either in the object or us, where we're aware, but we're not like trying to do something that's getting us into essentially beta state is what
Yeah.
happens.
It-
So
yeah.
anything like that's why people get Elizabeth Gilbert talks about gardening, and then her book idea for the signature of all things came to
Yeah.
her, right?
Yep.
So soft fascination is
I
this
love that.
research, and I'll name, I just want to make sure to give credit here. So yeah, the Kaplans did this soft fascination work. It's published in a couple different places like environmental psychology. And they really are focusing on like, what are the states of attention? That's the way they were looking at the brain. I'm more of a neuroscience girl, so I'm looking at the brainwave states.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is we got to get out of beta, left brain thinking, and we need to create the conditions to get into this yummy alpha theta, a little bit of
Mm,
gamma
mhm.
state, so that that's thinking like a radio dial. You know, if or a TV station, if you're streaming Legally Blonde, right, you're going to see one thing. And if you're streaming an NFL football game, you're not getting the same thing on the
Right.
ESPN as you're getting on, E
Yeah.
television network, right? We know this in our technology. So it's really the same with our brains. So it's think of it as putting your
Fascinating.
brain in the right channel. And then I added to our download walk gamma because the research out of the University of Wisconsin about gamma brain state was achieved originally only through longtime meditators.
Wow.
So I said, well, do you have to be a monk? And it was the Dalai Lama, and 17 of his monks came over to
Mm-hmm.
University of Wisconsin. They did this fabulous study. And
Mm-hmm.
many of you maybe saw those pictures of them all with the Electra. I think Time Magazine did an article on it and
Mm-hmm.
everything. But these monks were doing these high levels of gamma brain waves, which is above beta. And they're thinking, what is going on? We've never even seen, we didn't think that was even safe for a brain. And
Mm-hmm.
they're just all day long. But the meditative style that they practice in that particular tradition is a loving kindness meditation. And
Oh,
so when you bring
okay.
in love, and I'll define that very specifically when I share how to do this walk, because love is not, we're talking about romantic love. We're talking about love of self, love of your vision, love of earth, love of others. And so what I do to do a download walk is I set an intention for the download I want. So I hope everyone listening just has fun with this. Just maybe you
Mm-hmm.
just think of, do you want to download a certain amount of money? Do you want to download a healing in a relationship? Do you want to download an idea for, your next book? Like we've all got something every day. There's never a day I don't have something I'd like to download. Like, what should I
Yeah.
do about, should I make this investment or not make this investment? Like a
Yeah.
decision. Set that intention, and then before we start walking, I just do a deep breath, and I think of that desire, because desire is a form of love. Again, not sexual desire,
Mm.
desire of this. I would like to have this solution. I love myself enough to want to figure this out. I have a desire to create something that will be special and unique and beautiful. So we feel that love note that's going to start producing gamma, and we can send that out to the world. Like our downloads, I've heard this great quote, and I've applied it to downloads. It's like our download is the gift from the universe, and what we do with it is our gift back to the world.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
I love, right? Because
Yeah.
these are gifts, these downloads. Like that
Yeah.
idea about my mom helping us have a child. I
Yeah.
mean, like
What a gift.
huge gift, right? The
Yeah.
book idea. It's if those of us that like to create things. It's a
Yeah.
gift to get inspired with an idea. And
Yeah.
so the Greeks called these the muses, right? And we're calling them downloads.
I love it.
Socrates was talking about downloads in like 520 BC, and we're
Yep.
talking about them now in 2020, six and beyond. And so I think of the download is our gift from, the universe, and then what we do with it is our gift back. And so that is love in action. And then the movement, and here's the other trick with the download walk. So hard, but not putting on a podcast, not listening to an
Gonna
audiobook,
ask. Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
calling the friend. I mean, those are great.
Mm-hmm.
I love walk and talks with friends.
Mm-hmm.
I love, but when I want to take a download walk, and I do it every day, just that 10 minutes, just do it without any input, because we don't want to jam the signal, right? We
Mm-hmm.
want to be available as we walk to just have whatever. Now, often when I walk, I do not get a big download right during that walk, right? If
Yeah.
you're going to do a download walk for 10 minutes, but what it always does is it opens the door.
Yeah.
It opens the channel, and that might come in the shower later. It might come in a
Mhm.
conversation with someone. It might come in a dream. It might come just, I'm suddenly sitting on the couch writing an email and I think, oh my God, I know what to do.
Yeah.
There you go. And
Yep.
so I just want everyone to know you're priming the pump and some of these walks. It's not like, I call it downloading on demand because it is, and you will get the download, but sometimes it's not during the walk. It can be often for me after, which is why I love keeping a download diary, because then you're capturing them, right? If our work then is to give the gift back and do something with that download, then I want to have a place to track them. We have our little app that goes with the book. Everyone in our community can like track their downloads and like see the patterns. And, it's very fun when you get into it, it's like a treasure hunt.
I love all of this so much. I'm just so curious, like what in your life has changed since you have intentionally
Yeah.
created these download walks and you do them every day? So talk to me about the shift that you've seen happen in your own life.
My sense of peace and equanimity when I'm faced with a challenge, or I don't know what decision to make, or I'm not sure how to do the thing, or has like I feel like my cortisol level must have like really dropped. Like I feel healthier on in a mental health way, significantly. Also, it just feels good to walk and move our bodies. So there's the physical benefits, right? But I feel a sense of trust. Like I now know that the downloads are here. Like they're available to us. They will come, not always right away, but I know that if I keep putting my dial on the right channel and creating the white space like we're talking about, that they
The
will
white.
come, that they really will come. And so it has changed my just sense of things that would have triggered me. Look, we live in a crazy time. There's a lot
Yeah.
going on. I have, family, people have health stuff. I have a high school child. I run two businesses. Like it's not a cakewalk by any means, but my trust that the downloads will come and that I can trust the ones that come. That's the other thing I write about in the book. Cause I call it sitting on downloads, right? I always
Yeah.
ask our groups, I'll say, okay, is anyone sitting on a download right now? And we mostly are because we got something that we did feel a sense of resonance. We do kind of know it's for us tapping there, but it's scary to action them sometimes, right? So,
Yeah.
so the other thing is it's made me more bold to do something.
Ooh. It also brings up the question about after someone does have the download, how
Right.
do you know if it's just an interesting idea or a bad
Mhm.
idea, or one just worth sharing with the world and taking bold action, as you said?
Completely. And so I'm going to give like a micro answer and then I'll zoom it out, just
Yeah.
a short macro. The micro is, and actually, I don't know if you'd be willing to try this, but it could be
Go
fun
for
because
it.
this could help everyone. So
Yeah.
I created a brain prompt to find out like how each person, so we'll do Ashley for you right now, what lets you know something is a download versus you're just thinking. Okay. Because
Ooh.
I think that's a crucial question. Like, what's the
Yeah.
discernment there? Like you're saying, it's like, is this just a random, I'm just thinking, or is it like a download that I get to really do something with? So the way I do it, I'm going to start with something we probably all experience, I hope, which is love. So I'm going to just ask you, since we're together, what lets you know you're feeling love?
What lets me know I'm feeling love? I feel light, like shoulders lifted. I'm a very like feeling in my body person, given that I'm a
Hmm.
dancer. So like shoulders lifted, weightless.
Okay. So there's a shoulders go back, there's
Yeah.
a weightless feeling. So these are like somatic
Yes.
cues. Is there any emotion? I mean, we'd say it's love, but is there any
Yes.
other emotion with it?
The emotion with it is peace and
Mm,
joy. And
right.
that's like for me my foundation, like you know how everyone I feel like everyone has like the foundation I think of my feelings are love, but how I feel that is through joy. So like joy and
Right.
peace. Yeah.
Joy and peace. So I want everyone to hear it. So everyone can try this on your own. So you can say, what lets me know I feel love? And so for you, Ashley, it's this, the shoulders are back. You
Yeah.
kind of feel it
Weightless. Woo.
spreading. There's weightless,
Yeah.
and then there's this joy and peace.
Hmm.
Because it's like, oh, okay, love. This, I sometimes think of it maybe like a squishy feeling. It's sort of like a ooh,
Hmm.
squishy and
Hmm.
tinglies. So we all have our ways. We're each different. So I want everyone to code that for the, I invite everyone to
Ooh.
like, when I train people with this, I say, write down what lets you know you feel love. So for you, it's both somatic and emotional, somatic meaning
Hmm.
body, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
then we can say, okay, cool. And then how do we know what lets you know? And that's the important phrasing just for everyone's, it's actually a whole brain based question. It accesses different parts of the brain when we ask it like this, what lets me know? And so, Ashley, for you, you had downloads after dancing. What lets you know something is a download versus regular thought?
Okay, it's clarity of like the most surest. It's when it's what do they call it? The aha moments. You're like, that's it's wait, very similar to when you were like, that's it.
That's
That's
it.
it. It's just it's an all-knowing
Mm,
moment of clarity that's like, that's it. No,
that's it.
look no further.
Right. You just know that some
You
people
know.
call that the
In your
clear
body.
cognizant experience. It's like
Yeah,
it bypasses intellect, it's in your
it
body,
does.
and you
Yeah.
just say, I know that I know that I know. And you
Yeah.
and it's interesting now that I've gotten, have these conversations for almost 2 years, hearing so many people get a that's it. And
That's
we
it.
resonate. There's a recognition. What that
Yeah.
phrase means is I recognize there's something here that's special, that's right, that's true. And so that's for you, Ash. That's your code. That's what's going to let you know something's a download. Now, do we run out and take out a loan and whatever over every download we get, right? Like we don't even be creative. Then of course, then speaking with mentors and other, if it's a big project that involves
Mhm.
investments and time, then of course we may want to share, hey, I got this download. And what do you think, and put it through our left brain analysis. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Of course, we're
The
not getting
gift.
rid of this
Yep.
is the Einstein quote, right? We have a the way he described it was we're designed where imagination was really our was the master and the logic is the servant. And he said
Yes.
we've become a world or a society where we've forgotten the master and
Hmm.
made the servant our god.
Yeah.
And that's, we are so attached to the logical, rational, because it feels safe, because it feels
Yeah.
defendable,
Yep.
that we don't even bother. It's not even that we're ignoring our imaginal, creative, intuitive side as much as we don't even go there. Like, again, we go to the AI or we go to someone else and we outsource our genius, we outsource our
Yeah.
own wisdom and miss out on the download that was waiting for us, right? And so that's what's so cool, that you were able to very easily, that was not a struggle. You're like, this is what lets me know.
Yeah, and you know what's so interesting as you're talking, which is it's so so fascinating. It's made me think of, and I think our listeners can resonate to this, the moments in my life where I've had downloads, creating my business. I'm celebrating 12 years in business in 2027. This was a download I received. It was like oh, that's what I'm going to do. Is just I'm going to start a business. I didn't know how to start a business. I don't have a business background. I don't know, like, right? And like my left brain could talk myself out of that all day long. And sometimes it still does. Is like, who do you think you are to do this? But what I've created in my office, in this life, for my family, for myself, is a dream come true. There's no other way I could explain it. And that started from a download. And the same with my other book, Authentic Power. And I was with my dear friend who, Julie Riesler. And I was like, this is it. I'm writing my book about my healing journey, and there's no one that's going to stop me. And I just did it. Sometimes I feel like I channeled that whole book and I'm like, oh my God, how did that just happen? But
Right.
it just flowed. And it's also, so how does a download, is it very similar to like a flow state too?
Yeah, for sure. Because
Okay.
the download is sort of the thing, like the idea, the sign, the
Yeah.
aha. And then what if we are courageous enough and willing to say yes to it, it will take us into the flow state, because then you'll get the next download and the next, because you got the idea for the book. And again, you could have just sat on it. A lot of
Yeah.
people leave it there. It's
Because
fun to
it's
have the
scary.
fantasy. Well, because
Yeah.
I don't want to sit down and write the book.
Yeah.
My ego wants to have the idea and the book launch party.
Yeah.
In the
Right.
middle, no interest, right?
Yes.
No
Yeah.
interest in that. Like, because that's hard,
Mhm.
but with the download flow state and like it becomes a lot less hard, because then it's just at each moment you say, oh, I'm going to go download what to do in this paragraph, or I'm going to download the next
Yeah.
chapter. And you got in the flow state, and the flow state comes from, you're in alpha theta. You probably had a great alpha theta state going,
Mhm.
and your gamma. I think we have a little gamma going in flow state, because we're also in
Yeah.
joy. Like when we
Yeah.
get in flow, we feel great. We are happy, we're joyful, we're grateful, and that's going to produce those gamma waves.
I feel like just a download alone just can create such beautiful gifts for everyone in the world. And I love that your mission is to help us all access our human genius in a world that is being overtaken by AI. This almost to me feels like a remembering
Hmm.
of the beauty and miracle that it is to be human.
Right. And that's what this contrast of AI is giving us the opportunity, if we accept it, which I know
Yeah.
you are, and I am, and many of us are, to really look at the incredible singular gift that being human is.
Yeah.
And that's pretty exciting to feel
It's
that appreciation. We've never had a foil, like we've never had this contrast of the so much non-human except in sci-fi. And now it's
yeah.
our world.
Yeah, and I think what a gift it is that you are coming out with this book now, because in a world in a culture where we've been societally conditioned to be left-brained, right? This is almost the counter approach to staying within our humanity.
Yeah.
And this is a message that is so needed. I mean, I feel like it's like a life-changing conversation now, and that is going to be needed to have for many years to come with our own children, their children, to stay with our human gifts that we have. To your point in these studies and research, like what did you say earlier that like we this machine here can do things so much faster, like
Yes.
less energy than it takes to power
Yes.
AI.
Yes, because the fastest computer was called it was some hilarious El Capitan for like
Yeah.
until last month, and then it was upended by a machine in China, and it'll be upended next week by
Yeah.
something else. Like we're never going to win a speed race, we're never going to win
Yeah.
an information race. Like it's done, that's over. There's no way, but what it takes environmentally and
Mm.
pure power to power those computers that can just now keep up with the human brain or just a little faster, but the power required it is like a million to it's some insane statistic. I have to go back and look because I just was reading that research this week. And what's more though is it has no soul. Remember,
Yeah.
back to that thing. It's got no
Back to
heartbeat.
that.
And
Yep.
so back to what is the future we want to see of if it's human flourishing, which is the future I want to see, then it will take Margaret Mead's small group of committed citizens, hopefully an ever-growing larger group of committed citizens to change the world, and Margaret Mead's beautiful words on that are just, can a small group of committed citizens change the world? And she says, indeed, it is the only thing that ever has.
Oh.
So that's
Oh my
important. Yeah.
gosh. Yeah,
Right.
talk about the future of human flourishing. I really believe it starts with this incredible conversation and just all of us taking our own time to feel those downloads. Sarah, where can our listeners and our audience get information about you and your incredible book?
Absolutely. Well, luckily the book is available Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the places. It's pre-order right now at the time of this.
Pre-ordered my copy
That's
already.
right. That's right. The download, you can type it into your search engine and I'm Saraconnell. I know it's spelled a little bit funny, but Sarah Connell, and the download, it's available everywhere. But I welcome people. I mean, if people want to DM me on Instagram, it's just at Sarah Connell, my name. Go to our website, sarahconnell.com. I mean, we do want to be not even a small group of committed citizens who are promoting HI alongside our AI, but
I.
we welcome everyone to be in this conversation and download with us. I want to hear from people. Like if anyone listening does the download walk that we talked about, nothing excites me more than hearing someone say, I got to download and then tell me about it. I couldn't be happier.
My gosh. Well, everyone, you have to purchase this book. It's life-changing. Sarah, this conversation has been life-changing. I know for our listeners as well. So thank you for doing this incredible work in the world and being of service to humanity, to keep our humanity, and living a life of purpose. I appreciate you so much.
It's my honor and pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Oh, well, Sarah, this conversation reminds us that in a world filled with endless information, our greatest advantage may not be consuming more. It may be creating the space to hear what only we can contribute. And your work challenges us to think differently about creativity, not as some reserved gift for a few, but as something every one of us can intentionally cultivate. And perhaps that's the message that we need most right now, because artificial intelligence continues to transform how we write and work and communicate. And the future belongs to people who can offer something that technology never can.
Yeah.
Original human insight rooted in lived experience, imagination, compassion, and purpose. So thank you again, Sarah, for sharing your story and for reminding us that some of life's greatest breakthroughs don't come from pushing harder, they come from being available. And to our listeners, before you open your inbox tomorrow morning or before you scroll social media, before you ask AI, maybe take those 10 minutes that Sarah talked about. Go for a walk, carry one question, leave your headphones behind. You never know what might be waiting around the next corner. Until next time, thank you for listening. Keep living with purpose. I'm Ashley Bernardi, and this is Purposeful.